Ron DeSantis, in writing to Tucker Carlson's TV program, articulated his vision on Ukraine. Let's set that aside for a second. There's a CNN poll. Here's the takeaway from the CNN poll. This is the headline. Most Americans care more about picking a 2024 GOP nominee who agrees with them on issues than one who can beat Biden. According to a CNN poll, more American Republicans want a candidate who agrees with them and affirms their worldview than one who can beat Joe Biden. They don't care about beating Joe Biden. They care about beating each other. They want to vote for someone who says their side of the GOP is right. We see this shaping up and can tell this poll is true by Ron DeSantis's vision for Ukraine. DeSantis's position, in a nutshell, is Joe Biden's position. We should support Ukraine defensively against Russia that invaded their territory and keep our word to Ukraine, helping them defensively, but we should not give them offensive weapons, allowing them to expand the battlefield. Joe Biden has been very hesitant to give them long-range missiles and F-16s because of that. That's what Ron DeSantis says, except Joe Biden says it's in our national interest to help Ukraine, and Ron DeSantis says it is not a vital American interest to support Ukraine, and that has caused a meltdown from some on the right. Ron DeSantis is giving them what they want, but not saying that it's a national security issue. Therefore, they are angry with Ron DeSantis. And, oh, he's an isolationist. He's just like Trump. No, Trump's position is we should do absolutely nothing to help them. We should back out of this and let Russia take over. That's Trump's position. The other wing of the GOP, some would attribute to Mike Pence and Nikki Haley, and I don't know that this is actually true, is that we should give Ukraine anything and everything they want. The DeSantis position is a middle road position of give Ukraine weapons to be able to defend themselves, recapture territory taken by the Russians, but it's not in the U.S. national interest to do anything that would cause American troops to be engaged in Ukraine. And that's a key part of what he said or put in writing, that we should not do anything that would cause American troops to be committed. Therefore, no long-range missiles and no F-16s that he thinks would cause Americans to be engaged. Now, I will tell you, Ukrainian pilots are right now inside the United States training on F-16s. Biden will give them F-16s, and perhaps DeSantis will come out stridently against that. We will see. But the most notable portion of all of this is the reaction to Ron DeSantis. Here is the headline from the New York Times. Ron DeSantis says protecting Ukraine is not a key U.S. interest. The Florida governor on Tucker Carlson's Fox News show broke with Republicans to attack President Biden's foreign policy and align more closely with Donald Trump as he weighs a presidential bid. That's what he claims. While the U.S., let me read you the statement. While the United States has many vital national interests, securing our borders, addressing the crisis of readiness with our military, achieving energy security and independence, and checking the economic, cultural, and military power of the Chinese Communist Party, becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them. Except they leave off key aspects of what he also said. In particular, that we don't want to pursue regime change with Russia, which no credible person really wants. And also that he's happy to help Ukraine, just not give them weapons where they could expand the battlefield outside of Ukraine. It's kind of interesting how they're positioning this. And so you have a wing of the Republican Party, an absolute meltdown against Ron DeSantis for literally having the exact same position Joe Biden currently has. Joe Biden hasn't given F-16s or long-range missiles to Ukraine. But Republicans would rather be right than win at this point. There is actually very little difference in the reaction from some of these Republicans who are mad at Ron DeSantis than from the stolen election Kerry Lake crowd. Just think about this for a minute. I know this is going to make everybody mad, but it's true. Ron DeSantis literally right now in Ukraine has the exact same position of Joe Biden, except Ron DeSantis won't say it's in our national interest. In fact, he says it's not. Even though his policy is exactly the same as what Joe Biden is currently doing, give them defensive weapons, help them, don't commit U.S. troops, don't allow them to expand the battlefield outside of Ukraine. That's Joe Biden's position. That's Ron DeSantis' position. But because Ron DeSantis' word choice included saying it's not in our national interest, a lot of these Republicans want to burn him down. There are Republicans who believe the election was stolen. They go beyond the idea that there were some shenanigans. They go beyond the idea that Republicans got outmaneuvered by Democrats in courts who were able to get judges to change election procedures in 2020. They really believe that the Dominion voter machine stole the election. And if you don't articulate their view of it, they are outraged. So you can have a candidate who says that, yes, in fact, there were shenanigans, which is true. And Democrats were able to get judges to change rules in the middle of an election, which they should not have been able to do, which is true. And that allowed Democrats an upper hand in the election, which is true. But if you're not willing to say the election was stolen, these people will burn you down. It's the exact same phenomenon. Both sides in the GOP would rather beat each other and define victory by I'm right, you're wrong, and look who agrees with me, than actually beat the Democrats. There used to be a time within the Republican Party and the Democratic Party that we gave license to candidates to nuance a path to try to build a broader coalition. And at this point, it's like, hell no, you're not allowed to say this thing I disagree with to grow your coalition because I want to be right and I want you to agree with me. Where's this? Oh my gosh, this thing. Sorry, y'all. I pounded my fist on the table and it set off my soundboard and it started playing music behind me. I didn't even know it could do that. Nonetheless, you get my point. Ron DeSantis is articulating a pretty mainstream path in Ukraine. But his opponents think his word choices have to line up with theirs or else. The stolen election crowd. There are people who agree there were shenanigans. I'm one of them. There were shenanigans, and the lawyers got outmaneuvered, and they were able to change the rules, and that gave the Democrats an advantage in 2020. But I don't believe the election voting machine nonsense. It's not true. It's been disproven, but they would rather be right. Carrie Lake would rather go to her grave believing the election was stolen than actually win the freaking election in Arizona. Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania would rather go out of his way to believe the election was stolen and alienate independent voters than he would actually win an election. There are Republicans on all sides these days who want to show that their side of the party is right more than they actually want to win an election. They would rather back Joe Biden and all of his policies and judicial picks than allow any candidate room to try to find a different way forward that still accomplishes most but not all of what they want. 80%. You know, Ronald Reagan used to say your 80% friend is not your 20% enemy. You just agree on 20%. And now it's like, oh my gosh, you disagree with me 20% of the time. Screw you. I'm finding someone else who agrees with me 100% of the time. That's my frustration here. This gives none of these candidates really room to breathe as a candidate. And by the way, this goes for Pence and this goes for Haley. Do you really believe Mike Pence or Nikki Haley would want to commit American troops to Ukraine? What happens when they say, no, we actually kind of agree with DeSantis. We don't want to exacerbate this war and draw in American soldiers, sailors, and airmen. And are they going to burn them down too? DeSantis, if anything, has threaded this needle maybe too finely. Because if these other candidates come out and say, you know what, DeSantis is wrong. I think we need to give Ukraine F-16s and long-range missiles and let them take the fight to the Russians. That's going to make them look like they want to expand the war and possibly draw us in. That's going to put them on defense. I mean, let's make no bones about it. Ukraine has actually engaged in surreptitious attacks inside Russia already. What happens if they fire our missiles in our planes into Russia? What do you think is going to happen? And by the way, I actually am more supportive of being more aggressive towards Ukraine. The Ukrainians are running out of ammo right now because Joe Biden is dithering. And that's the other funny thing here, is that Ron DeSantis' position aligns very much with Joe Biden's, except the actual president of the United States of America in the here and now has failed to keep Ukraine supplied with enough ammunition, and they're starting to run out of bullets. And that's not Ron DeSantis' problem. And notice all of these Republicans who are aligned with Biden, they're not taking Biden to task for dragging his feet on helping Ukraine. They're more upset at Ron DeSantis for saying it's not in our national interest to help them. Even though he wants to help them, it's not a vital interest of the United States. And they're madder at Ron DeSantis than they are Joe Biden. Interestingly enough, when Tucker Carlson introduced the clip and read Ron DeSantis' statement, he said DeSantis is not a neocon. He doesn't want to engage in massive American intervention abroad. DeSantis is winning the Tucker Carlson primary, which in and of itself is a good thing. Tucker Carlson, deeply influential among the grassroots base. It's been clear for some time he has a bias towards Ron DeSantis and has moved away from Donald Trump. And now with the Dominion voter lawsuit and the behind-the-scene messages, we see this more and more. Tucker Carlson has never been a big fan of Donald Trump. I have a sneaking suspicion. I suspect before we get to the middle of the summer, you're going to see the Trump fans go all out attacking Tucker Carlson. They have largely danced around Tucker. They haven't wanted to engage Tucker Carlson. Between the leaks from the Dominion voter lawsuit and Tucker seemingly defending Ron DeSantis' position, I suspect you're going to see open warfare on the right between the Trump wing of the party and Tucker Carlson. And I think that helps DeSantis too. We have some intriguing candidates running for president of the United States. We have Mike Pence, we have Nikki Haley, we have Mike Pompeo getting in, I think. Ron DeSantis will be getting in. These are really intriguing candidates. I don't want to be the person who digs in my heels and says, well, they said this thing that I don't like. Forget their actual substance of policy. They used a word choice I hate, therefore screw them. I don't think that's responsible. I think you have to give license to these candidates based on what all of them say to deviate from you where you are, as opposed to you being so hell-bent on being right and having every candidate echo exactly what you think that you would rather be right than lose. And remember, this is the key important thing here. Never take a position in a primary that costs you a general election. DeSantis may be playing it too clever by half, essentially adopting Joe Biden's position without Biden using Joe Biden's words. But it's a position where the bulk of the GOP is. The majority of Republicans in this country, majority of Americans want to help Ukraine, but don't want Americans going to Ukraine to die. That's DeSantis' position, regardless of whether you like how he said it or not. And the fact that there are people who are upset about it means more people really want their word choices affirmed than they actually care about winning an election.
Want to be on the show? Call